All right, Music Posse. Let's put a pause on it right about here. All right, Music Posse, thank you for that lead in as always. Friends, social media connections, welcome to this Friday live stream episode of Selling That House. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, I want to give you a nice big welcome right there. Thank you. And for those of you who have followed me through one, two, or many of my live streams, thank you for liking this content. Some of it is useful, I'll be honest with you, but most of it is humorous, sarcastic, and if not, it'll just make you chuckle for 30 minutes of your day. And with all of that said, I thank you for liking and subscribing to our content. Having said this, my guest today is a friend. Hell, I'll say this, he's a close friend. He's such a close friend where I met him through a cold outreach before COVID, and fast forward all these years, we've become so close where he and I have a standing appointment at our office in the west suburbs, and it's called the Oak Brook Golf Club. And when he comes into the studio, he'll probably laugh because I said that, because yes, we do meet a lot there, especially when the weather is nice as it is right now. But today, we're not meeting there. And the reason why is because my close friend, he's constantly juggling a lot of stuff. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory about him. He is a 30-plus year real estate professional. Not only has he sold, bought, managed, and owned real estate, so he's covered all four of those gamuts, right? That's a pretty large and wide and deep level of experience. But he's also managed what I call tenants, business tenants. And so with all of that said, maybe we're not going to get into it today's live stream. He's got so many stories. So after you watch him, listen to him in today's live stream, if you do not know my guest, you got to hit him up and have a conversation with him. Now, before I bring him into the studio, he is also someone that I have borrowed, replayed this cliche multiple times over. And John, when you hear this, I see you laughing. Here we go. His cliche that I've borrowed and replayed with others is simply this: all life events always point right back to real estate. So without further ado, let's give my guest, John McCormack, a nice warm welcome. Music Posse, let's do the honors. Let's give him the drum roll. And
that's quite the intro, Bill.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
I was afraid you were going to use some other type of slogan or some other type of quote. I wasn't quite sure where you were headed there.
Well, hey, come on, John. Our live stream, because we're live streamed to the general public, it is PG. It is always PG.
Absolutely.
When you and I are having our out of office work meetings at the Oak Brook Golf Club, well, those meetings are R-rated.
Yeah, they can be. We try to keep it clean.
So, John, as part of you showing up for me in this live stream of selling that house, I'm going to put you on the spot now and expose what I think is one of the life events that many of us face. We either face it because you face it directly in your case, or we face it because we're in the sandwich generation. Maybe young to aging parents are scratching their head with this important decision, which is selling that house. Why? It's all about moving to the next chapter, downsizing, right sizing. Okay? So with all of that said, that's the backdrop of why I asked you to share your time with me, your audience, my audience, and our bigger collective audience. John, let's start with the first question. How difficult was it for you and yours to come to the conclusion that we're ready to sell that house?
On a scale of 1 to 10, you know, as long as you don't have a shotgun at your head, when you know, then it's going to be a 9 on the Richter scale. You know, I'd say it's at least a 5 or 6, and that's when you you know, plan accordingly and give yourself some time. I mean, it has to be a major milestone in your life story, because in our case, we lived in LaGrange for 28 years. That's a long time.
That is.
You know, it's 5 dogs, 3 kids, you know, 1 grandchild at the time, and that's expanded now to 3 recently. And you know, all your life events under one roof. That's a lot of you know, memories and a lot of things that you buy and accumulate. You know, and halfway through that tenure, we decided to knock our house down basically to 3 walls and rebuilt it. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was, you know, that was added insult to injury, if you will, or definitely stress. So to unwind that just emotionally, I don't think people, you know, well, let me backtrack. I wasn't necessarily emotionally ready for all the nuances that came along because I hadn't moved that much. If you're a corporate guy, if you're a corporate man or woman that, you know, does 2 or 3 years in a various position, a different city, if you came from a military background, you know, you're used to picking up, living lean, picking up and going. You know, I didn't live that lean. You know, we just accumulated, me more than my wife, but accumulated stuff. We can always use it. The kids will use it. You know, we like to entertain, so there's always stuff around to throw a ball. We live next to some tennis courts, so we had a lot of rackets. So, you know, I will say that it was very emotional and stressful from my perspective. My wife is very cut and dry, but
it's funny you share with me that for you it was more emotional, and it was surprising for me to now hear that you had accumulated more stuff than your wife. Interesting.
Well, you know, guys, you know, you're always prepared. You know, someone, you know, I need another screwdriver, like I need a hole in the head. But, you know, my mom was getting rid of her house, and here, why don't you take the tool? So now I've got, you know, a dozen more screwdrivers, you know, or you stop at a garage sale. You know, when we bought our house, our son was only 1 year old, and it was 2.5 car garage. We both were driving Hondas, and, you know, you could pull right in. It was no problem. And one weekend that changed, because my wife went out and bought about 3 or 4 different riding toys that my son could have at his disposal. Okay. So, you know, any parent that's out there, they understand what that's about. And I had a brother that lived out in Scottsdale, and he was the first person I knew that had a 3-car garage. And I'm like, you know, you have 2 cars. Why do you need a 3-car garage? Yeah. The third one was just for the stuff. And it's very true. And now you look at these houses, look at the proliferation of all the used storage spaces.
Yes.
They're everywhere. And it's really because, you know, you need to turn your basement into living space. You need to turn your garage into a garage.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how much stuff we accumulate in the space that we need to put it. So I'm sure that resonates with your clientele.
Yeah. And with you being a very well-rounded and experienced real estate broker, I'm not surprised to hear you drop that valuable information, which is look at all of the storage spaces, storage businesses that have popped up. Why do I say that? Because, well, outside of your sharing with us your personal story of downsizing, right sizing, you do own, operate, and manage commercial real estate property. So you see all of this through a bigger lens. Right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, it definitely carries over into commercial space as well. You know, a good example. Well, most of my experience with commercial real estate was prior to COVID. Okay. And to make a minor correction, earlier this month I just celebrated 41 years in real estate. Wow. Since 1985. I don't know where all those years went, but they did. They went by.
Well, real estate is a fast-moving, ever-changing business. So when you look back on it, sure, you know, you can count it up to 40 plus years, but I'm sure there are times where when you look back, it's like, that was just recently.
Oh, sure. Well, I guess my point was, you know, prior to COVID, you know, everybody was going to the office and you needed space, you needed storage. Historically, the number one underutilized space within an office facility is your conference room. Yeah. So some people look back and say, you know, when you're paying $20, $25, $30, $35 a foot, you know, it really kind of was a waste of money to, you know, have this really big, glamorous, conference room when you weren't using it. And now after going through 5-6 years of COVID, post-COVID, that definitely is the case. Look at how many people, you know, the office market is still hurting, although it's coming back a little. You know, people got used to staying in their fuzzy slippers and working out of the house and working, you know, remotely like this. So that's on a case-by-case basis, a company-by-company basis. You know, some people are cracking the whip and saying you got to get back. But, you know, the office market has totally changed forever because of COVID. No question about it.
Yeah. So, John, once you and your wife decided, yes, we're going to move, we're going to sell our larger home.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you from when you made that decision to when you actually sold that house?
Well, for at least a year prior, you know, we put the house on like mid-June, I guess, in 2023. Okay. So at least a year to 14 months prior, you know, we knew we were headed in that direction. So we started purging, throwing away, consolidating, donating, trying to sell, you know, and that is a very, very trying position to be in. Yeah. Okay. You know, well, and again, it was still, you know, somewhat COVID oriented at the time.
True.
And, you know, donating stuff. You know, places that used to come and take furniture, they wouldn't take it anymore. You couldn't donate it. You know, places that were open to that, they were being more selective because they didn't want to take on the liability. So there was a lot of issues to deal with. Personally, I think I was on a first name basis with the guys over at Goodwill. And I think we donated enough stuff to pay for probably 2 or 3 months, you know, of rent, just us, because I was there every day with another truckload of stuff.
So you were a man with a mission.
Well, the wife had the mission. I was just the guy that was lucky enough to get rid of the stuff.
You were the physical execution
Yeah,
person.
I was the muscle. She's the brains. I'm the muscle.
Okay, fair. Now, as I get reminded to your story, you sold your home
Mm-hmm.
right about the time when we were kind of coming out of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, that was a great time to sell, was it not?
Well, I think it was the beginning. I think it was the beginning of the tightening up of inventory. I think I could be wrong. I don't follow. You know, as you know, Bill, we're in the information business, and you can only absorb so much. And I would say that probably early 23 is when they really started to recognize that, you know, interest rates were on the way up, inventory was on the way down, and it was a trying time. It wasn't a problem selling. We actually sold it to the first or second person that came through, because my wife really didn't want to go through the whole open house thing. The house was really very much put in shape. You know, it was only 15 years old. So it's a great location, great town, being in LaGrange. So it sold at full price or more, you know, very quickly. The problem was, where were we going to go?
Exactly. And
you know,
before we transition to that, I wanna freeze frame what you just shared with us. It sold very quickly. It was in good condition. And you and I both know this. Behind every great man is a better woman. So we both share in that with our spouses, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you, as a very experienced real estate professional, I'm gonna guess this. You probably had your strategy of where to price point selling your home, right?
Yeah, we had a pretty good idea. You know, as you know, when you are out there as a broker, you don't set the price. The owners of the property sets the price. Right. You know, you're just providing them the information to give them to make an informed decision. And yes, it's based on square footage, location, you know, rooms, bathroom count, all that good stuff. But so many of the variables that enter into the picture are, you know, the special nuances of the land, the home, where it sits, and really what it looks like. You know, the people that are out there now, you know, anybody that is in their mid to late 20s, the 30s, 40s, and 50s and older, you know, they grew up with HGTV. So everybody wants the open concept. Everybody wants something that is move-in ready. And the vast majority of homes out there are not necessarily, you know, in that condition.
That's true. So pricing a property, especially your own property that you sold quickly, is really the key to success.
Well, it's one of the keys, but I think I think it's supported by, you know, getting your house in order, purging. I can't emphasize that enough. Okay. I'm not the only guy that lived in a house for 28 years who, you know, took the kids to Menards and Home Depot and garage sales and flea markets and bought stuff that said, "Oh, we can use this. We're going to use this. We're going to build this. We're going to try something." And next thing you know, your 2.5 or 3 car garage is down to 1 car because you got too much stuff.
Yeah. Or you're parking outside in the driveway.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's funny you bring that up, because I'm convinced, and you know, I've never really had the conversation with my architect friends, but there are so many homes that show a 2-car garage, but you know, you can't get 2 cars in those garages nowadays. Well, you know, you might get 2 smart cars, you might get 2, you know, Honda Civics, but you're not going to get a full-size family SUV or 2 of them, or that in a minivan, into a 2-car garage.
Yeah, well, cars have gotten bigger too, right?
Yes, absolutely. I have a friend of mine that just he's a concrete guy, and he just moved from a 3-car garage where it was front facing and he could drive right in to a 3-car garage that is side loaded, and he's not happy. He does not like it because there's not enough swing space.
Yeah.
You know.
So John, as I bring up in our live stream these early retirees, these young baby boomers, okay, what lessons would you tell them now, because you have the luxury of your hindsight is 2020? What would you tell these young baby boomers now if they're planning to follow in your footsteps of downsizing, right sizing? What would be the first thing they need to do?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is go out for dinner with your wife and make sure you guys are both on the same page.
Well, spot on. Yes.
Because that, it definitely helps if you're both pulling the wagon in the same direction.
Same direction. Yeah.
Because if you're pulling in opposite directions and you're not committed to it, it's gonna be a battle.
That is well spoken. I like that. Okay.
I know a lot of people, one guy wants to stay, it was their forever home, and the wife wants to go. So once you can determine what, if you're both on the same page, then you really have to give yourself a considerable amount of time. Because the truth of the matter is, and there's always exceptions to the rule, Bill. Your kids most likely don't want grandma's stuff. They don't want your stuff. We grew up in a generation where, grandma gave you the curio cabinet or her collection of china or the Hummels or the Yadros or other mementos. You don't see any of that. Everybody nowadays reads Architectural Digest, watches HGTV, and
you don't see that stuff.
Yeah, no, you don't see that stuff in the pictures. So you really you have to be ready for that emotional detachment, because you're most likely tossing that stuff. I know you paid $50 for it, but you put it in a garage sale, they're going to start the pricing at $1, and then they're going to say, would you take a nickel for it? And you're going to get in a lot of trouble when you hit the guy with a wrench.
So what you're telling me is it's not even worth the cheapest McDonald's Happy Meal.
Well, exactly. It's kind of like the collection of Beanie Babies. If that was your retirement account, you got a problem.
That's a good example. By the way, audience members, no shade. We're not intentionally shading on you. If you did collect Beanie Babies.
No, these are all real world examples, Bill. I've been in numerous conversations with people where they're fighting. That's my great grandfather's World War II hat. Okay, well, you gonna wear it? You want to sell it? You're in charge.
Yeah. Now, John, question: as part of your journey to get to your next chapter, downsizing, right sizing, was your motivation behind that big goal to move closer to family? And the reason why I say this is because according to NAR, National Association of Real Estate, the typical profile of a home seller right now is a young baby boomer, and their top reason is to be closer to family. Was that your reason?
No, not necessarily. My family's local, but that wasn't the driving force. We wanted to downside. The kids are out of school doing their own thing. We didn't need the big tax bill. We didn't need the big house. If it was reasonable to hold on to it, maybe we'd still be there, but we just didn't need it. The real driver after determining where we wanted to sell was to be as close as possible, because we really like the area. I'm still involved in different aspects of real estate. So that takes me all over the place, and other side hustles that I do. But my wife, as you know, has a business that she runs out of the house.
Yes.
And we were looking for a dedicated space for her to do that.
Makes sense. And I would say this, John, whether whether a move requires moving just 5 miles, 10 miles, or 100 miles. Let's be real with each other. The effort is about the same, is it not?
It's exactly the same, Bill. You know, I can't imagine what it's like to go through all that work to just move a few blocks away.
I know.
And people do it.
People do it. People do it. So,
You know,
John, as we wrap up our live stream today, I did warn you about this, and you were kind enough to say, okay, Bill, I'll play along. And as we wrap up our live stream today, I want to engage you in my game of Would You Rather, right? Here we go. Would you rather? So audience members, listen in closely as I ask John a simple question. Would you rather do A or B? So here we go, John, because you sold your own home as an experienced real estate professional. Would you rather, if you had to do it all over again, would you rather sell to a seller who's paying cash, probably giving you a little bit less money, and then they're making it difficult this way, which is, Mr. McCormack, I'm paying you cash close to what you're asking, but I do reserve the right to pivot and get financing. So that's A. Would you rather choose A? Or here's B. Would you choose B? And that is a young couple buying that big home you've decided to let go of. They will get financing. They have to get financing. And they are fully approved for the dollar amount that they're willing to transact with you. Would you choose A or B?
Well, there's probably a couple variables that are not in your options there that might alter it. Okay. You know, cash is king. Cash on the barrelhead is always good. I think you said close to your asking. You know, depends on the variables. Depends if I'm under a time crunch. You know, you really have to go beyond the price and the offer. What other baggage are you going to have to deal with? Because deals can come and go. They can crash for a myriad of reasons. You know, in this environment, going back to 2023, and it's never gotten better. It's only gotten worse.
Harder.
You know, the inventory is just brutal.
Yeah.
I don't think, you know, I keep hearing various, you know, statistics somewhat that you put up there. You know, 85% of the brokers that are out there have not sold one thing this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. And, you know, there are some brokers that do well, but they're established. They've got a nice book of business. So if the ones that really benefit, I will answer your question, but the ones that really benefit, Bill, are those that already have a place elsewhere that they can go. True. So they're not contingent. They already bought the place in Florida, Arizona, Texas, Wisconsin. Might have been a summer home, could have been a second place, what have you. But if you're going to be contingent with your buyer, and then you need to be contingent because you need to find something, you know, that just muddies up the waters. So, you know, I would have to evaluate, and if I could lean towards the younger couple that could benefit the beautiful home that we possessed, you know, I would try to work with them as best as possible within a reason. I'm not going to leave 20 grand on the table just for fun.
Yeah, I get that. So what I'm hearing is paying it forward, letting go of your nice big home to a young couple so that they can start their family. All things being equal, they're going to.
Yeah, if I could do that, I'd be happy to try to help.
I loved how you answered my question in my stupid little game of Would You Rather. So audience members, as John and I wrap up our live stream today, I want to thank first my close friend, my Oak Brook Golf Club work companion when we have our conference meetings outside. But more importantly, you heard me share this with you. I have borrowed, replayed John's cliche of all life events always point to real estate. So John, thank you for showing up for me as my special guest today on a Friday at that.
No, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, in your mobile office. So audience members, for those of you who want to learn more about other lessons that John can absolutely share, and if you are just too damn lazy to Google search him, real simple, scan the QR code. I will bring you in an intimate three-way text chat with John McCormack. So John, thank you once again. Music Posse, let's play us.
You're welcome, Bill.
Here we go.
Thank you.